Good morning.
Morning. Hello, everyone.
So this is supposed to be about micro studios and free-to-play, and I see we've got a Rovio person and a Microsoft person. So is there anyone actually from an indie here at all? Hey, a few people. A few corporate people here. Okay. Go on, you can start.
Well, it's
that's my name.
Your name's first.
Oh, yeah, that's me when I was clean-shaven. I have a company called Chorus, which I started 3 years ago. Basically, we're probably the world's smallest publisher of video games. We take Western indie games, we exploit them ruthlessly, and sell them in Asia for a massive profit and destroy developers.
And I'm Leanne, and I'm one of the small developers that have been taken advantage of horrifically. Crushed under his iron will. And from a company called We Heart Dragons. And those are all our Twitter handles that you can follow us and make us feel important.
So I wouldn't bother.
So we've come to talk about our upcoming game, and how we've monetized it. And that game's actually the third in a series. So how do we get to here? We started with our first game, Glyph Quest, which was, as you can see from the middle screenshot, a sort of match 3 style puzzle game. It was our first indie game as We Heart Dragons. We'd never independently released anything before. We Heart Dragons, incidentally, is 2 people. It's myself and Alex Trowers. We had great reviews. It did pretty well. It was shareware, so we decided we'd monetize it with one in-app purchase you get to level 5, there is a paywall, the rest of the content is free. And it did around 250,000 downloads, so we were pretty happy with that. With an average of 12% conversion. We peaked at 21%, and that was a good week. But overall, since launch 3 years ago, we've averaged out at about 12%. We followed it up with Super Glyph Quest because we decided, obviously, we were onto something amazing. We filled it with more puzzle matching, a few new mechanics, more story. It was bigger and better. That was kind of our tagline. We had some collaborations, which was kind of exciting as well. We collaborated with Hatoful Boyfriend, of all games, Skull Kickers, which is a comic series, and Monument Valley, because we've got friends in much, much higher places. It got great reviews. Again, Bigger and Better was one of the Touch Arcade reviews that they gave us for it. But we were premium. Don't do that. Don't ever do that. It did about that many downloads to date. So it all kind of went a bit horribly wrong. But in between making Glyph Quest and Super Glyph Quest, Shin came along and made Glyph Quest the Asian version. Do you want to talk about localizing this one?
Yeah, so when first started the company, I knew Alex from way back, so I said, I'm starting this company, I'm done with Microsoft, and that was just for you.
No offense.
And wanted to really see if we could get Western indie games to work well in first Japan, but actually if we're going to localize into Japan, given that the iOS store is kind of everywhere, then let's see if we can try China and a couple of other countries as well. So we decided I decided to work with Alex and Leanne, take this game out there, and we did a few changes. The main one was, actually no, this one was free to download already, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So we did that. The biggest change, I think, apart from the localization work, was changing a lot of all the artwork.
You made it less brown.
Yes.
The Glyph Quest games were kind of, the art style was a mix between medieval illuminated manuscripts and anime, and that means it was quite brown,
really
and
brown.
You looked at it and just turned the saturation up on everything.
So I think, with European kind of eyes, that Western brown style that Leanne had created was great if you know things like the Bayley tapestry and that you're used to that tradition. In kind of Japan and etc. It's like, this just looks really brown and murky and horrible. Not horrible. It was lovely.
It's fine. It's horrible. Horrible is an appropriate word.
Sorry. The tone was slightly mismatched, so we changed it.
And it got great reviews. Again, a wonderful review from Famitsu, actually, which gave us our motto, which we took on for We Heart Dragons, which was Aridia Sempium S. They didn't say that. They said in Japanese, this is a dried cuttlefish game. And we were like, is that just Google Translate being a bit silly? And no, it turns out it means if you've ever had dried cuttlefish, anyone ever had dried cuttlefish? So apparently, because I still haven't, it tastes better the more you chew it. So they were saying that this game gets better the more you play it. And we were like, yeah, that's what we want to do. We want to make games that get better the more you play them. So, and then obviously we had to put it in Latin because we like brown. So you'd think then that the next step for us and Chorus would have been to do the same treatment for Super Glyph Quest.
But no.
No. Because what we did is we put a load of story in Super Glyph Quest, and puns, and cultural references, and accents. Those were all the things that you hated.
Yeah.
Yeah, really difficult to localise, especially over to Asia. So instead, Chorus suggested that we just took the game, stripped out all the story, and made it a much more linear progression, much like the first game was. So you're just going through the different levels, meeting the new monsters, encountering the new characters.
And also, sorry, I mean, the collaborations, things like the Monument Valley obviously is famous everywhere, but it was just hard to see how that contributed to more awareness in Japan especially. So, and also that and the fact that you'd written a short novel.
Yeah. And some of it was in like Goblin, so that was great. But so that led us to
it was less brown though.
It was less brown. Working together to make Glyph Quest Chronicles, which is not brown at all. Well, it's a bit brown. It's still a bit brown.
Showing a logo that's completely brown. Yeah.
It's gold.
Okay.
But look, that's like green.
You're right.
So we had some goals with making Chronicles together. These are your goals.
Oh, are they? Oh.
Yeah.
Thought they looked familiar. I really like the games, obviously, and I think one of the challenges was that it looks like a match 3, and there's obviously match 3 elements, but it's so much deeper, which is why Famitsu said what they said. But the biggest issue was we didn't get enough people kind of coming in at the top, so we said, well, let's just make the whole thing free to play. It has enough elements there that can be monetized as a free to play game, so let's do that and see how it works. From Chorus's point of view, what was attractive was originally when I spoke to Alex, it was, we're going to get this done in 6 months, and this is how much it's going to cost. This was December 2015. The game's still not quite out yet.
You could have lied about that.
But so it was supposed to be out last summer, and it's taken a little bit longer, just 3 times as long. Oh, by the way, spoiler alert. Go ahead.
That's a slide later.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think, so when Leanne booked this talk, and I'm going to blame you, we were supposed to have launched the game about a month or 2 ago and have all these amazing results to tell you. The game's coming out next week. We have 0 results to tell you. So the answer to can a micro studio blah, blah, blah,
we'll get
is
to that
we don't
slide.
know.
I've got an excellent GIF. You're ruining it.
I'm sorry.
The other thing was he wanted to help We Heart Dragons to make this game, because obviously Super Glyph Quest didn't make us as much money / any, so to be able to make Chronicles we needed funding, and that's why we ended up teaming up, because we don't really like him. Our goals as We Heart Dragons was much simpler. We just wanted to do a proper job. We'd made 2 Glyph Quest games, and both of, like, the first one was great and it was our first thing and we loved it. The second one we thought was much better, and then we were like, apart from all of the fluff around it, which actually we don't need. We didn't need all of that story, although it got us, you know, Hatto for Boyfriend, she contacted us because she wanted to work with us, and that's how that worked. But yeah, our goal was to just do a proper job, make a nice game. Monetization. So this is Shin stuff again.
Shit. Okay. So one of the interesting backstories about We Heart Dragons, Alex, who's not here, who's on the expo floor showing their next game, Space Creed, which you should go and check out. Alex used to work at Boss Alien. Can I say this?
Yeah.
Okay. So and he's an old school developer. We met at Bullfrog like 20 years ago, and so he's not the biggest fan of aggressive free-to-play, and I'm coming along saying, I like your nice puzzle game, can we make it free-to-play? So there was a little bit of back and forth around that. So it was not, I'm the evil publisher, I want to make as much money as possible by exploiting little people out there spending a little bit of money at a time. He doesn't want to do that, nor does Leanne. So there was back and forth on this. So the whole point of the monetization was obviously let's get as much stuff in there that makes the game better for the highly engaged players, but obviously enough there so that people that don't want to pay anything, they can still get a great experience out of it.
And also, free to play now, if you're in the mobile space, it's kind of the new norm. If you're making a premium price title on mobile, you are the outsider. Everyone expects your game to be free. People will complain and they will be very vocal about your game being free to play, but as you know, we've released 2 games. One of them was free with 1 in-app purchase, one of them was premium, and the numbers kind of speak for themselves on that. Our goals, again, were a little bit different to Shin's on the monetization. We had one which was, don't be a dick. We didn't want to be this evil spreadsheet that has a little bit of fun art at the front of it to get money from people. We still wanted the game to be fun. We didn't want to touch that. Didn't want to touch that. So we had to find ways that we could work together where it would have monetization strategies in it, but wouldn't impact on how fun the game is. And we compromised. We came up with patron mode. So patron mode is totally optional. If you buy into the in-app purchases in the game, you're going to start earning towards patron mode, or you can buy it outright. But what it does is it rewards the players by turning off the stamina mechanic. So once you've reached the pay threshold in the game, look at Rovio, they're like, no! It's gone. You don't have to, but we're not locking out the in-app purchases. You can still buy the hard currency, you can still buy gems, because there's plenty of other stuff in the game that you can use to buy for that. You just won't have to top up your mana. So you can keep playing it as much as you like, you've still got access to in-app purchases, and you've given us a chunk of money that we think is, no, that's fine, the game's definitely worth that, happy with that. Challenges. So here we talk about the development of how we made Chronicles. Obviously, time. Yeah, we had a 6-month schedule to start with. That didn't happen. Money. Shin is kind of paying for us, so it's coming out of Chorus's pocket. We kind of need to release this at some point. Or, as they say in Azeroth, time is money, friend. So they're kind of the same thing. Tech debt. This is something that we hadn't come up against before. We'd never done the Android conversion for a GlyphQuest game. We'd always got a friend to kind of help us out with that. We had to take that on board this time. We didn't know what we were doing. Yay. We know now. And good old feature creep. We knew there was going to be some. We had a 6-month schedule. We knew we had bigger ambitions. We knew some things were going to creep by the wayside. We did not know how much of that was going to happen. But there we go.
We were designing things on a train in Tokyo Game Show. Like it just kept coming, and a lot of this was, the feature creep wasn't just, wouldn't this be cool, wouldn't this be cool? I think as the game was getting developed, it was like, okay, this game's really good, it's fun, but okay, let's turn our minds back to the free-to-play elements and the monetization elements. What are we going to do? And then that just kind of, so a lot of the feature creep was around that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So a couple of things that we also did new for We Heart Dragons was we did a beta. We'd never done one of those before either. We'd kind of just got our friends down the pub to play the games and tell us if they found anything that was a bit weird. But we actually opened up to the people of the internet, and we had a lot of sign-ups, which I had to put into a nice spreadsheet, which was not fun. But we ended up with about 200 players testing it for us when we closed the beta. There was a lot of bug fixing. They found everything that we missed. So if you are a teeny tiny studio, definitely get 200 people, random people, to play your game.
And this didn't cost anything?
No, this was totally free. There were some minor changes to text descriptions that were made where things didn't quite make sense. Obviously, you get really close to the game and you know what everything is, and then someone else turns around and goes, what on earth is that? And you're like, oh yeah, we should probably explain that, and not in Goblin. And we kept about 20% of the beta players. A lot of people dropped off early doors because they didn't realise the game was so early in development. Well, not so early, but there was problems with it still. They thought they would just be playing the game for free kind of thing. But we did a lot of community building. One of the things that we did for the beta was we started a Touch Arcade forum for people to give us their feedback. It seemed like the easiest option. We put a link in the game. If you found a bug, or you thought of a thing that needed changing, or you thought of a feature that we wanted, you could go onto Touch Arcade, type up your thoughts, we'd get back to you. What actually happened is people got back to us through that forum, through a couple of other internet forums, through Messenger, through SSM messages, like from family and friends, through Twitter, Facebook, and Skype. So if you are doing a beta, try to get people to just respond in one place, because otherwise you're getting responses to us, you everywhere, and you're trying to like make lists of everything. But that was the beta.
I think most of it came to you, though, directly.
Most of it came through the forum, which was very handy. And then we went on to a soft launch.
Yes.
That's right, isn't it?
No, I think it was 3.
No, because we had Scandinavia, New Zealand, Singapore,
Okay.
one other one.
I can't remember.
Can't remember. We had about 6 territories, give or take. We had very poor conversion.
Yay.
Doing the soft launch turned out to be a really vital thing, and the fact that we were told, do your soft launch for much longer than you planned to do it for was also pretty helpful. But that meant that we took the decision, which we were playing with anyway, but we were like, no, we have to put ads in. We're going to have to go this
Reward
route.
ads were already in there. So rewarded ads for, obviously, getting additional gems and stuff was already in there. I think the issue that I was seeing was that people just weren't buying stuff in the store, obviously, even though it's there. And I think there wasn't enough time to add all the buy this, do this, and that. So okay, we're worried people are playing the game, they're liking the game, but they're just not getting to the store even to think about purchase. So, okay, let's put, yes, horrible as they are, interstitials in there after a certain point. And then Alex came up with this very bizarre mechanic where if you get an ad after 5 levels,
Yep.
and then you get them every 2, unless you buy something for real money, in which case it takes what you've bought, looks at its value, and then adds that to the number of times routine you see when you see the next advert. Which seems very complicated, but it means that if you buy something, you're less likely to see an ad over time.
Playing into the whole us not being dicks about the monetization. We'd also added a couple of new in-app purchases and a whole new shop, which was very exciting as well. What we didn't do is we didn't do enough updates whilst we were in soft launch, and we didn't do enough communications. We didn't do enough community stuff during the soft launch. And then this happened, and no one played our game.
No one played any other game.
No one played anything. It was just this. This is what happened. So, yeah, if you're releasing a game, even for soft launch, don't do it when Nintendo do something.
Specifically Zelda.
Specifically Zelda. So, scope, we knew it was going to change. We knew it was going to get bigger. We didn't quite know by how much. It got massive. We added so much extra stuff, and it wasn't just stuff in the game. Some of the tech debts there as well, like adding cloud saves, which we didn't realize was going to be a thing that we needed to have, let alone just wanted to have. But the Amazon lady here, this is our Amazon store. So when you're in the game, which is one of the things we got from the soft launch, and you didn't take any potions on your adventure with you, you can Amazon something in, and this lovely lady will deliver it for you for premium currency. So it's cheaper to buy it before you go in, but if you get stuck, you can buy a healthy little health potion, sort your life out. It's great. And then iOS updates happened because we've been so long in development, and all of a sudden they want stickers for everything. It's like, oh, we have to make stickers. It's nice. So we did all that. And eventually we got to the point where we're like, we're ready. We're ready? We're ready. We can release this. So what happened then?
Oh, this is what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, we were supposed to talk about the results. But everything that's led us up to this point meant that we had to delay. It was supposed to come out just before, a week before, and then iTunes got hacked, and we couldn't actually submit the game. And we were like, well, this is fantastic. Now we have to delay even further.
I don't know if it got hacked.
No, it did. They were being held to ransom.
Huh.
So, other than not knowing the results of how well we have done, is there anything else you want us to do on the game?
No.
Good. So, yeah, it's coming soon. Out simultaneously on the App Store and on Google Play, which is, again, a first for We Heart Dragons, so we're very proud of that. It's very good. And that's about it. Assuming that's the correct time.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're well under time because we don't have any results to share with you. Sorry about that.
Well, I thought we'd get to questions, right?
Okay, sure.
Yeah?
Thanks. Question. Oh no, a question.
It's an easy one.
Okay.
Yeah, just wondered.
There's a mic coming around.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, just wondered why you went for interstitials rather than reward ads.
We have both.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
started with just reward ads, but yeah, the soft launch information, the conversion was so much lower than we were hoping for. We had to ramp that up a little bit.
And did you find that the reward ads weren't generating enough, so you had to...
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, thanks.
There's a mic. Yeah.
Okay. What's the revenue per user that you're targeting?
No idea. Honestly, at this point, no idea. And it's a terrible thing to say. But
How much you need?
Huh?
How much you need? Do you know that?
I know how much we need to make back.
Okay.
So I can do the sums from that. But no. Because this is terrible. So as a publisher, you know the stuff we've released in the past, like The Room and stuff like that. They've been kind of single shot games. You download them, you pay one IAP, and that's it. We've never done this before. So part of the goal for this, apart from wanting to help these guys out, wanting to have a worldwide title, was, okay, what does it take to actually launch one? And we can read up a lot about it. We can ask people like you, and ultimately we just wanted to go through it and see what it looked like. So in terms of what our targets are, it'd be nice to make our money back. Be nice to be able to pay them some money, but beyond that, it's let's get it out. Let's get some institutional learning into both of our groups and see where we go from there. So that's probably more ultimately the benefit for us. And actually, the costs, yes, they were bigger than we originally had planned. But if you on a budget-wise for a game, it's actually still very low. So it's a risk. If we don't make any money back, is either company's going to fold? No, we're okay still. So that's a long-winded way of avoiding your question, because I don't have the answer to your question. That's it.
Yeah. I've got the mic, so. You obviously haven't released the game yet, but what do you think you would do differently next time you've already learned?
The user interface. I think because we've already made 2 of the games, we kind of just the first thing we did when we made this one, apart from make everything a bit prettier, work a bit better, put a couple of new mechanics in, we just kind of copied the same one that we'd made before. And once we'd got all that in place and we were playing it, we sort of realised, oh, do you know what? None of the UX is going to work for a free-to-play title. We are going to have to rework this from the ground up. And once you've actually kind of built the project and it's all working and you're playing it, that's a really hard step to kind of backward engineer. And you almost have to start over again and just like cut out the bits of code that you want and put it in a new project. So if we're making another free-to-play title, one of the changes we've done is look at what that path needs to look like from the very beginning, so that we're not having to go back in and rebuild it from the beginning. We did change it after the beta and after the soft launch again, because it still wasn't quite the right path, but definitely with the information we have now, start with that. And because we already knew the game bit was fun, we didn't have to change that at all, so start with that. That's what I would do. Hi.
Hi. How many players did you end up having in your soft launch period?
That's a good question. Can you remember?
No. It wasn't a lot.
It wasn't a great deal.
And so we learned more from the closed beta, which had like 200 people in the end, I think, than actually in the soft launch. The only big difference, obviously, crucial difference, was the soft launch had the IAP stuff in there. What the soft launch taught us was no one's finding them, no one's buying anything, which the closed beta was never going to tell us because we didn't have that stuff in there. So I think we learned. You guys got a lot out of the closed beta from a bug fixing point of view.
From a bug fixing point of view, yeah.
And soft launch was useful enough to tell us that actually, monetization wise, and given how much time we've got left on the project, just the store on its own wasn't going to do it. So I guess that's what we learned.
And also, and this is a bit of a pain, especially for a micro studio, you're going to have to spend on getting users in soft launch, whether you like it or not. And we did Facebook campaign for that, so we did a small amount, which got us all of our users. But we could have done a better job of getting in touch with more of the press in the territories that we were launching in, buying more users. So that's one thing we should have done, which we didn't.
I've got the mic.
Hi.
Just wondering if you've got any support from Apple or Google for when you guys do launch. And
part of the reason for the delay was the conversations with them. as you know, nothing is ever guaranteed, etc., etc. Everything that we've released has had some kind of support from them, and so I think, you know, if they're a micro studio, then we're a micro publisher. We don't have a huge UA budget, so what's important for us is to make sure that we're speaking to them all along, we understand their features. In all honesty, I think originally we wanted to get an Apple Watch thing in there, so that when you come across a new creature, you get a little alert on here, it tells you what kind of creature it is, what it's strong against, what it's weak against. We didn't have time to put that in, but we did have time to put iMessage stickers in. So I think there was a little bit of that going on, and that's contributed to the delay. It's not great for this talk, but I think ultimately it'll be good for the games.
I'm actually really sad that the essentially Pokédex didn't get made, because
that would have been cool.
That would have been cool.
And second question, actually. So one of the things that I understand about free-to-play, not having actually made one myself, but there's a long tail once you've launched, and how do you imagine as a micro studio supporting that kind of continual development and updates required to sort of increase that money over time when you guys are so small and you're also clearly building another game as well? So how do you trade those off?
We've built the game in a way where adding new content is relatively straightforward. It's mostly just me generating new monster assets, which is a process. We've streamlined that pretty quickly as well. We did have a update schedule which had to go way out the window because of how far delayed we've got. But it's basically coming up with where are the seasonal pockets that we can put updates in, where when we're not sure exactly where along the curve the first update's going to have to be. But in terms of adding new content, we have tried to make that it's not quite procedurally generated, but it's as close to that as we could do it with still authoring it. Expect to see a lot of monsters with a colour change.
But not brown.
But not brown. No, not brown. Gold is fine. It's like shiny brown.
Shiny brown.
Cool. So, like, on the subject of you mentioning when you were translating the game over to an Eastern market, you wanted to change a few things. Brown being the number one problem. But I'm interested to know, like, is there a notion or any kind of sense that you have to rethink your monetization strategies when you're kind of targeting sort of the Asian markets compared to Western markets, or is it kind of universal and translate quite well?
Events is the biggest one. So ideally, and there was a good talk from the guys at Psy Games yesterday talking about Shadowverse and how important events are. Now, Psy Games is a massive company and they have huge teams just doing events constantly. So ideally that would be great. So you'd have a time-limited event, come in and destroy these 10 monsters and get this stuff. They're already working on a new game. So yes, ideally we'd love to do stuff like that. But I think from my point of view, this was very much about getting a worldwide game out, and we're working with a two-person team, 3 with Parker, I guess. Yeah. So let's... Huh?
3.5.
Oh yeah, you're right. So let's see what we can do with this small budget, and so we didn't really have the time or the budget to think about local changes.
But what we have put in the game, we've got a daily dungeon mode which we popped in there. So if we get the user base, if we get the downloads that kind of exceed our wildest dreams, then we can utilise the functionality of the daily dungeon side quest, and that can become our themed dungeon content. So we've put it's in place that we can do it. It's just if we need to, we can stick that in. So you knew that.
Did I?
Yeah, we talked about it.
Okay, sounds plausible.
See, it's a good job we left all this time for questions.
All right, I wasn't
planned
expecting
it.
questions.
Hi. I mean, you touched on it earlier when you were talking about user acquisition budget for your soft launch. What's your user acquisition strategy for your main launch?
Cool. Oh, that's for me.
Yeah.
In all honesty, it's going to be relying a lot on the platforms and press and a little bit of small UA budget spend on Facebook, etc. like that. But it's not like there's a huge budget on it. So I'm hopeful just because our other games have had that strategy and they've worked to that extent. Yeah, If we had $1 million to spend on UA, that would be great. We don't have $1 million to spend on UA.
Do you just use Facebook?
Yeah, up until now it has been. I mean, yes. But for Chorus as a publisher, we haven't done a lot of paid UA anyway. And so I think this is why, you'll see a lot of free-to-play talks talking about the funnel and reacquiring users, making up for the churn. We're not that sophisticated, not because we don't understand the concept of it, but just because resources-wise we're very constrained on both sides. So I think a lot of this was an experiment to see, can we do it? I think Leanne said it earlier, we were all very confident about the game itself. We felt that the game was very compelling, had 2 games and reviews to back that up. Can we change it in such a way that, we've tried shareware, we've tried premium, let's try this. Originally it was going to be 6 months and done, it's taken a bit longer. So it was a little bit of that as well. So yeah, to some extent it's an experiment, I guess.
Hi, could you put the results that you were going to present on a website or something so we can have a look at them later?
Yeah, we'll certainly be blogging about it as soon as we know, for good or for better or for worse. And we've been very honest before about GlyphQuest, how we've done with the different games, and you can. So Alex does a game. He's called Gameraki, and you can find links on it, I think, from the We Heart Dragons website. So or from our Twitter. But we're very open about how we're doing, how we're not doing, and what we think about that. So we will certainly be putting our results up.
Could you also tell me how you distributed the beta version?
That was through TestFlight. So it was iOS only. We put an advert on the Chorus website, asking for sign-ups, and it was just, email us at this address, and then put all of those email details into TestFlight, because you can have like 1,000.
Yeah, I think so.
I think you can have 1,000 users on TestFlight. So we just used, because we didn't think we were going to get over that for beta testers. So we just used TestFlight for it. We had a lot of angry Android users. So.
Thanks.
No worries.
Hi. You said you created like this algorithm for adverts and in-app purchases. Do you have some sort of, because it sounds a little bit different from the normal way to present like the ratio between videos and in-app purchases. Do you have like a target, like which aims more to videos rather than in-app purchases, or?
No. So that's, I'm not trying to be glib, but it came from the soft launch where there weren't any interstitial ads, and we saw people weren't going to the store and buying stuff. The team made improvements to do that. I think that's when you guys started adding reminders when you go back to the hub. Hey, you haven't been to this shop in a while, come back and stuff. But I think the fear was, okay, this game is going to be widely played and no one's going to buy anything. So let's at least put the interstitials. It's kind of I don't know if you know the expression belts and braces. It's a little bit of it's like a security. If people are going to play, then at least some revenue is going to come in because they're going to hit some ads. So it was there was never any target. We haven't thought about ratios. It was kind of let's just put a safety net in there kind of thing.
Sure, okay, thanks.
Do you have any insight into why your conversion wasn't where you wanted it to be?
For the soft launch?
Payer conversion, yeah.
It was a lot to do with communication. Like Shin said, we weren't directing people to where you could make the purchases. And when you were in that screen, it wasn't readily apparent why you might need that thing, why that was a good idea to buy. So it was a lot of changing the UX, as I said before. So whenever you finish your quest, instead of going back to the main map screen so you can pick another quest to play again, you go directly to where the shop is, so you can restock your pack on all of the essentials you need to take into the next adventure with you. So I think that was the main one. And then it sounds kind of tacky, but like little price tags, like special buy, that kind of stuff, which you think, oh, I don't want to do that. And then you look at the data and you're like, yeah, let's do that. Let's try that, see what happens. So I think there was, from our point of view, it was a lot of communication. It was, we're not expressing what this is very well. Let's change it. And actually, you'd think we'd learned that lesson from the first game, because we, with GlyphQuest, where we made it, and everything was fine, people were emailing us and messaging us on Facebook going, what is this? And it was coming up with the enter your pay details straight away. It didn't actually say what you were buying. We were like, oh yes, we probably need to put that in. So yeah, communication, being as, a lot of people won't read the text, but at least if you put it in there, then they've got no excuse, kind of thing.
Sounds about right.
Okay. Any more for any more?
You already asked the question.
I know, I'm being greedy.
Oh my god.
We didn't put an upper limit on it, it's fine.
You're right.
I'm just curious about what was the logic behind the territories you chose for your soft launch?
Trying to think about what it was.
It was a little bit of not wanting to, not wanting to use the key territories, I guess. And I don't want to be horrible to New Zealand or Canada or the places where people usually soft launch, but they're smaller markets. So it was basically what are the smaller markets that we know and can use for our soft launch. I think
We did have some advice from Apple, if I remember rightly, about where to go, and I think we just followed that and added a couple of extra territories. Yeah. That's right, isn't it? I'm not lying.
I don't think so.
Okay.
It's not like you to lie. You're not like an evil publisher.
I was curious whether going through the process has changed your perception of free-to-play at all.
Probably not yours.
No, it has.
It's Alex is the rock, really. He's the Stonewall. He's the one that really doesn't. He's very old school. He wants to stick it in a box and ship it. That's what he wants to do. I want to keep paying the mortgage and providing for the family. So for me, what changed my perception on it was the dramatic difference in our download data from GlyphQuest to Super GlyphQuest. Because at the time when we took the decision to go premium with the second game, we'd had a lot of flack from people. We had reviews, we had 1-star reviews of people saying, ugh, paywall, worst kind of game, or, oh, this game's got in-app purchases, don't bother. And people leaving us these kind of comments and reviews, and there was threads about it on Reddit and such, like, oh, avoid, terrible, uninstall, that kind of stuff. And the media at the time, because this was like 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, all of the media, all the press were moving towards there's going to be this premium revolution, people want to buy their games on mobile. So we were like, well, it seems like a good time. And we did it, and it was the worst time, and it was awful. So for me, when it came to making the third one, it's like, no, we have to go free to play. If we do shareware again, great, but I think we should just go full free to play, because I know these people are saying what they want, but then they're not buying the game, so it's like we can't meet them halfway. So for me, that was the big thing. Working on this has just kind of reaffirmed, like, I was okay with it. I've had to, be the boss of the household and be like, no, Alex, we're going to put in-app purchases in. He's like,
It's worth mentioning Alex and Leanne are a couple, and they have a kid
know.
and another one on the way together, so that must have been happy family time discussing those things.
Yeah, no, it's fine. The only things we argue about is game development, so that's and we did argue about it.
I mean, thank you. I think from my point of view, there was. I now see how much naivety there was at the beginning of taking, hey, the first game we've ever published, which was GlyphQuest, which was great. It looks like it could be relatively easy to make to free to play. Let's just do that, and we'll do these things. Unbelievable amounts of naivety. So, and stuff that we had to overcome over time, such as patron mode seemed like a really good idea, a really good compromise, but then we hit the struggle of, okay, well, if we put patron mode in, then we need cloud saving, because if someone's going to buy patron mode or unlock that, and then they uninstall it and they want to come back to it, it's not there anymore. So, which isn't fair, because we're saying, you're in this mode. So that was a very last minute thing. Shit, we need to put that in there. And there were a few of those moments. So I think it was, I guess it started off with thinking, this plus this business model should be easy, bang, out the door in 6 months. No, that was wildly naive of me, I think. that fair?
That's fair. But he's a good publisher. He's kept paying us, so it's fine. But it just means that we have to make much more money before we get any of the revenue back. 'Cause obviously, Chorus have to recoup how much they've invested in the development.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we can finish 3 minutes early.
Okay.
If there's no more questions. Well, I hope it's been. Oh, here we go.
Oh, bloody hell, Will. Is it going to be about KPIs or something like that? Is it going to be a target question?
He's coming, don't worry.
Son of a gun.
Could you expand a little bit on what the "don't be a dick" means? Like, what is being a dick, and where does it begin and end? Am I one?
That is a good
Probably.
I don't know. I don't know you that well. No, it was.
Need Alex here for this.
You need Alex here for this.
Yeah.
This is a good question.
It's a good question, though.
It is a good question. We just didn't want to be perceived as being one of these mechanical, faceless spreadsheets that's been designed to extract money. And that seems to be still wildly a perception of free-to-play games. Because we get a lot of emails from people who just throw out these horrible complaints, and then I reply to them like, "Hi, yes, I'm not a corporate monster, I'm an individual, we're a 2-people team, this is what we do." And then they reply very apologetically, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realise," which I thought, yes, well, you didn't think, don't say that. So this was more the fight that me and Alex had, where he's seen behind the veil and didn't want to do that. He didn't want to be that kind of game. He didn't want it to not be fun for any reason, and he didn't want the gameplay to just be there to fuel the monetization. The monetization for him came very much second, but obviously when you're making a free-to-play game, you almost can't take that approach. So we knew the game was fun. It was like, how can we make the monetization work for what we have and it still be fun? And that's why we came up with the compromise of, well, if you spend this much money on it, that's it, you're done. You don't have to spend any more. But you can. We haven't shut you out of spending more. I don't think you're a dick. I think you're lovely. Oh, okay.
That's only because you know him, though. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope it's been some way informative or insightful. Apologies we don't have the data that we wanted to share with you guys, but keep an eye on our Twitter. We will definitely, as soon as we know how well we have done or not, we will be shouting about it or crying. It's going to go one way or the other, right?
Yeah.
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 Thank you very much.
Thank you.